Greetings, travelers, and welcome to Traveller RPG headquarters. You can find our Facebook group by searching our name in the Facebook search tool or find a link in the video description below. Thank you for participating in our second annual Mayday Traveller Day event. It's a day we celebrate Traveller and all its offshoots for all the fun times it's given us. I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as CyborgPrime, and today I'm happy to introduce Mr. John Watts of Independence Games. Welcome, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How have you been?
Oh, I've been great. Things are going good.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining our little event here. And I got some questions for you. And so if you're ready to begin, I am.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, great. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Ringgold, Georgia, which happens to also be where I live now. I went to school here and went to college at the University of Georgia for a while. Went to to Dalton University for a bit, and ended up actually finishing my education online with the University of Maryland.
Oh, what did you major in?
I started as pre-law and didn't do very well with that. Didn't go anywhere with that, and then it was political science for a bit, and then went straight into history.
Fantastic. I have a friend who I have a couple of friends who went into history and really enjoyed doing that. So how?
I love the study of it, but to be honest, I think in most cases it just gives you something interesting to talk about while you're in the unemployment line.
He had a similar sentiment. I was like, the career you're in now has nothing to do with history.
Yeah, well, I can talk ancient Greek politics with the best of them, but yeah.
That's awesome. So if you don't mind me asking, how old are you and how long have you been gaming?
Oh, well, I'll turn 50 in July, and I started gaming when I was I'd say 14. The first thing I played was Star Frontiers because my parents were very much of the belief that Dungeons and Dragons was evil and I should avoid it. And so I ended up going to a local mall that was down the street from where I lived. We actually rode bicycles, very Stranger Things kind of way of doing things, I guess. And kind of rode bicycles down to this mall that was not very far from where I lived. And went in there, and there was a toy shop, and they had a lot of the Steve Jackson games that came in the little plastic containers.
Uh-huh.
And bought several of those. I think Car Wars, and there was a Vikings game. It might have even been called Vikings. I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, they had a Star Frontiers set in there, and so we picked up Star Frontiers and started playing that, and just had a blast with it.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was it about?
Oh, yeah.
What was it about Star Frontiers or RPG in general that kind of hooked you?
I had always been a science fiction nerd for as long as I can remember. I've always been someone who likes to read. I've always been someone who likes to read into these things and go with science fiction, and it's always been something that's been near and dear to my heart. And so, of course, when starting off with Star Frontiers, you can play it in the actual universe, but we were changing things already and going different directions, and it was just so much fun. I ran the game, and I would change where the worlds were, or change things about it, and just that world creation was the most fun to me. But certainly we just had a blast, just pretending to be these great heroes, while in reality we were just kids going to the school on the bus.
All right, cool. And so before you, what let's say after you got into Star Frontiers and got into gaming, what was kind of your path through gaming to where you are? I mean, what took you from a person who does gaming as a hobby and to somebody who does gaming for a living?
Well, after we had played Star Frontiers for a while, we moved into playing James Bond, which fantastic games. And we did that for a while, and then I was looking for something else to play. And so we moved into playing Traveller, largely because I kept seeing all the kids at school with D&D books, and they kept carrying around all these boxes and boxes of books. They had bags and bags full of books. And so I determined that I needed to get into a game system that had a lot of books. And so Traveller had a lot of books, and so that was clearly where I needed to go. And so we started playing Traveller, and so I ran Traveller for my friends here, and then when I went to the University of Georgia, I ran for my friends there, and I just sort of made it one large continuing game. And so either of those groups could play in it. And as much as I love the the official Traveller universe, it just didn't do anything for my friends, and after a while it didn't do much for me either, and it wasn't our kind of thing. And so I kept looking for something that was, and oddly enough, what ended up being our thing was I went to the local video store and rented Silverado, the Western. I don't know if you've seen this or not. It's a great
Yeah,
movie
shot
if you haven't.
locally where I live.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But loved that movie and kind of came back. And it just so happened, very, very serendipitous, that I had read in the back of the Vargr source book where it stated that you could consider the Vargr and, Traveller in general to be like a Western, in that, it's the 1880s, and, and communication moves at the same speed as as people, and so forth and so on, before telegraph came in. And I thought, that's brilliant. Looking at it as a Western and considering that I'd just seen Silverado, I was like, having people go from town to town like they do in the movie, that's an awesome idea. And so I started kind of going with that whole concept of Traveller as a Western, I guess, and kind of running with that. And over a while, that sort of became the game I was running for my friends, and my friends in college, my friends back home. And then when I came back, I actually ended up coming back up here for a while after I've been down there for a while, and ended up running at a hobby store called the Royal Tiger in Eastridge, Tennessee. We did all of that for a while, and so I was running basically games for all of these people and kind of tying it in as to one universe. And so eventually, all these notes and so forth, it was time to do something with them. I had notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of stuff. And so I took one of the short-term campaigns that I had been running here for my friends and my wife and some other people, and I wrote that up for Steve Jackson's Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society, and that seemed to go pretty well. And so I just started kind of writing things, sending it off here and there, and eventually just decided that really I just needed to put the whole thing together, and that's where Clement Sector comes from. Clement Sector is basically this campaign that I started running in 1986, put into with notes and notes and notes and tons of notes and pulled together, and that's what it is. And so that's pretty much how I ended up becoming a publisher, was taking all of the things that I had put together for the one gigantic campaign that I'd been running for years with 100, I don't know, I think we ended up with 35 or 40 people that had been playing at one point. And so, that just ended up becoming Clement Sector, and then me putting it out there. And I put a few things out, put them up on drive-through, and people seemed to receive them pretty well. People bought them, and it just kept building and building from there. So that's pretty much how I got to here.
What did you do before you got into game design?
Well,
like what was your day job while you were working on Clement Sector?
Well, as I said earlier, history degree will give you something interesting to talk about while you're in the unemployment line. So I ended up doing just a myriad of different, odd jobs here and there. I did telemarketing at one point. I worked with my dad for a while before I went to college. Before that, I was doing kind of odd jobs, mowing grass and things at a truck stop, which was fantastic in retrospect, because there's no greater thing to be around, to think about as a starport, than to be in a truck stop. I mean, it's just perfect for that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And that was a lot of my idea of what a starport is comes from the years I worked at a truck stop. But I worked at a toy store, and I did some other things, and eventually I ended up settling down and working for my dad's electrical supply company, and that lasted until last year. And last year I moved into doing Gypsy Nights games, and then of course now it's Independence games full time. And so this is now my day job.
Hey, fantastic! What a
But
great success story.
oh, it was yeah, and it was fun doing it. I've been having a blast. But we started Gypsy Nights games in 2011, and it just it went well. Everything just kept going, and like I say, we changed the name to Independence Games because I really felt like that was better.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
all kinds of fun.
So was that when you actually published the Clement Sector?
Well, I actually started off doing because I wanted to start off small and just see if anybody cared, and I did some small things called Quick Worlds. The Quick Worlds were basically one star system out of Clement Sector, and just kind of put it out there for a small amount of money and just to see if anybody cared. And those all went well. And so I thought, well, it's probably time to do a subsector now. And so I just kind of pulled it all together and put a subsector out there. And in the meantime, I also did these things 21 plots, basically going off the old 76 patrons pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of went through, put 21 of those out in a small book, and those went really well. And so at that stage, I thought, well, it's time to just put the whole setting together and run with it. And so, I think Clement Sector actually came out in around 2012 or 2013, but it had actually began years and years ago. And, even the Quick Worlds and the 21 plots were all connected to that because it was all just notes from, my earlier campaign.
Hmm. And so did you put this all together like yourself, or do you have a team of people that helps you? Does somebody do maps, or do you do all the content yourself?
When I first started out, it was just me. I did just the Quick Worlds and so forth, and then when I moved into doing 21 plots, I had some people, friends who were helping me and kind of moving into doing some things along with that. And of course, a lot of the things that I put out there that you see are based on things that happen in the games. And so, a lot of people had already helped me with content in a lot of ways. For instance, if you read through any of my stuff and you see references to Super Pirate, which is always basically well, we call it a hollow show, but it's basically the television show that a lot of people watch while they're in sim space. Well, this was actually based off the original campaign that I ran at the Royal Tiger that I was talking about earlier. We had a guy who was a pirate, and his name was Greg Seaborn, and his captain, who was played by a guy named Tim Lee, kind of put all this together, and there was a lot of just wild, crazy action. And so, so a lot of it comes from there. Originally, you've got all that going on. So I really had a lot of help anyway. And then on top of that, I got hooked up with Steve Atwood of I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it's Digital Waterfalls. And he did some of my early ships, and then I had Ian Stead join us, and he did does a lot of the art, still does. Ended up getting together with Michael Johnson, who has much more of a brain for starships and technical things, and so we put him on things. And so Michael works with us now, and his friend Bradley Warnes does a lot of art. Let's see. And then, of course, Jennifer Leonard has just joined up with us just recently and does a lot of art for us. So we've got a lot of people doing different things as far as Clement Sector goes.
That's great. Do you have offices, or are you working from home, or everybody's working from home?
No. Well, realistically, when you look at it, the main part of the company is just me and my wife, and pretty much I work out of my home office.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the rest of those folks are all freelancers, and they basically work out of their own homes. In fact, well, Ian is in the UK. Brad's in the UK. Jennifer Leonard actually lives not very far from me, just up the street in Tennessee. And then Michael Johnson lives in Perth, Australia. So not a whole lot of getting together.
Right. No, I guess not. Thank goodness for the internet, man.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Without it, there's no way I'd be doing this. Not in the way that I'm doing it. That's for sure.
Okay, so aside from Silverado, are there any other books or movies or things that kind of pop out in your mind that kind of inspire you or that you admire as far as sci-fi goes?
Oh gosh, tons. I would say, oh gosh, I read a lot of Heinlein when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of that goes in there. H.B. Piper, definitely Allen Steele, another great one that I absolutely loved his stuff. A lot of Allen Steele stuff, if you haven't read it, deals with just average people dealing with space and the situation in the future. And I absolutely loved that. I thought that was brilliant. And a lot of things, certainly, the original Traveller, really, it really drove me to do things. That's for sure. I mean, so lots of different things. I was a big Star Wars nut when I was a kid, and there was a lot of that, and of course Star Trek and the original Battlestar Galactica, and so there's a lot of that churning in my head, and so just a lot of different things like that.
What's your favorite aspect about the Traveler game? I mean, is there a particular part of it that kind of speaks to you?
Well, the main thing to me always was the communication. The communication moves at the speed of the person. So, you've got that, sort of closing down of what you and I see as, perfectly normal. The idea, for instance, that that I'm conducting business and talking to these guys and working out a book with two guys are in the UK and a girl that lives up the street from me and my editor who lives in Missouri and you know and of course Michael in Australia. The idea that we're able to have all these different people living in different areas, different cultures, different things are able to kind of come together. This is a normal thing for all of us. And so the idea of kind of going into the future and having everybody on one planet be able to do things like that, but then have people on other planets be so far away, it that to me, that was always a neat concept to me, and it was always something that really fired me up with that. I always loved that bit of it. That was my favorite part, to be honest, of the OTU. I was never a big fan of the Imperium. I was never a big fan of some of those other things like that because I couldn't, my mind couldn't grasp how being part of a feudal system was better. I was like, no, I'm not liking that, and so being a person who was doing history and doing political science and being into all these things, it didn't click in my brain. And most of my friends, if they had any science fiction inklings at all, were very Star Wars folks or had read some other things, and it was always Star Wars, the big bad empire. Blake Seven, a huge influence on me. I absolutely love that show. Of course, the bad guys of the Federation. They're
Right.
and it's always those are the bad guys. And so the entire concept of the Imperium being the good guys didn't click with me or my friends, and so we just couldn't go there. But yeah, the idea and the idea that communications moves that way and that you're going to have to overcome this obstacle or can use it to get away. One of the great things, I mean, my family, for instance, came from Scotland and came to Georgia as part of a way of getting away from all the terrible things they had done back home. And so that whole concept is a great idea in and of itself, that you can kind of say, what, things are bad for me here on Earth. I'm not going to stay here anymore. It's time for me to go to Clement Sector, and I'm a long way away. Law enforcement's going to have a hard time getting to me. It's not like you and I, Frank, if you and I did something bad, it would be no time flat before the cops got us.
Right. Right. In Traveler, you can outrun the bounty hunters for a while.
Sure.
Or,
And Oh yeah.
And there's like
And
a,
you can.
the Empire or law enforcement would have to consider the expense. Are you really worth chasing?
Mhm. And the thing about Clement Sector is it gets even more complicated because there is no overarching empire. All the different systems, with the exception of the 6 worlds that are in the Hub Federation, everybody else is independent. And so, Cascadia is not really working very well with Monroe. And so they're not getting the report that, Bob's a bad guy. So yeah, it tends to open up, a Wild West kind of atmosphere, which is, really what I was driving for.
Hmm. Kind of harkens back to the wagon train of space or whatever that they
Right,
were originally going to call Star Trek.
right. That was always the really strange thing because I had friends of mine who, had told me that, Firefly was coming out. And I was not a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm still not. And so my friends were like, oh, and I'm like, I don't want to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer in space. I have no interest in watching this show whatsoever. And, the show started, and I guess it'd probably been on 30 minutes before I start getting phone calls going, John, your Traveler game's on TV. You got to watch this, man. This is crazy. Your Traveler game is on TV. And I'm like, oh, no. Dude, I recorded it. I'll be at your house in a few minutes. You're going to see this. You're going to lose it. And I was like, oh, well, all right. Sure enough, they were right.
I never got to see it until it was in the theater. They kept bouncing it around where I live on different nights and preempting it with baseball and all kind. I was like, how can I watch this thing? It's never on the same night twice.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I never saw it when it was first on TV. But man, what a great series!
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of
It ended up being a
space
hit dog.
cowboys or independent kind of spacefaring crew of eclectic people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, that was the thing. It was, I don't know, it was really funny because a lot of the planets in Clement Sector that I have, some of them I changed the names because the names that were in Firefly, it was already there. And I was like, people are going to think I'm ripping Firefly off here. I can't do that. I changed some of the names for, Clement Sector because I didn't want it to be too close to Firefly, which is kind of weird.
So, what's your personal favorite type of content to produce? Do you like to do the maps or modules or charts or rules or just writing fiction
I
about
I
your game? Or
I I am a world building sort of guy. That is my thing. I would love nothing more. In fact, I did this for, gosh, I went through a particularly bad period at one point when I was a freshman in college and was just really depressed and really upset. And one of the things that really got me through that was sitting down with Traveller and a World Builder's Handbook and just kind of going through and making planets and just sitting there making planets over and over and over. And just the absolute joy that brought me was just, I can't tell you how important that is to me. And so I did a lot of that, and I still do it. I still enjoy doing it. It's just a wonderful pastime to sit there and do that. I enjoy it, and so making us like, well, I just recently came out with the subsector source book for Earth Subsector, which is part of the new Earth sector setting that I'm doing, and just a joy to sit down and just to sit down and run through all the different systems and the do the planets up and all this stuff. It's fantastic, and I really enjoy it, and that's my thing. Now, that's one of the reasons that Michael Johnson is such a lifesaver, having him as a freelancer who will do things for me, because he does starships and I don't do starships. I am terrible at starships. I you should never have me design a starship, never ever ever. And so that's why it's so great to have Michael come in, and Michael will come through, and he's just done up another one for us that folks will see probably in another month or so, called the Copeline. It's going to be a wonderful little merchant ship for Earth Sector, and it's just fantastic. And I have no brain for that kind of thing whatsoever. That is just not me at all. But I can make planets all day, and that's just my thing, and I love it.
That's one
I
of the
love
things that drew
characters.
me to it as well. Is I make a subsector and they go, okay, what is it about this place? Look at all these
Right.
weird planets. Why did somebody make a thing here and not a thing there or whatever? And just coming up with the story that ties it all together.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's part of the fun of Traveler for me.
Well,
So
yeah, me too. And that's a real thing for me is, basically sitting down and then saying, okay, well now why would anybody do that? Why would you want to live on this terrible, awful place?
right, it's a big ice
One of
ball.
the
Okay, well now they need to get food
right.
from somewhere, maybe their neighbors. So you just kind of
Well,
make an evolving story about what's going on.
right, exactly. Well, my friend Greg Seymour that I was talking about earlier that played the Super Pirate. I was sitting one day and when we were trying to come up with the way Cascadia subsector worked, and it's like to get through, because essentially with the Zem drive you can only go so far and blah blah blah. There, you kind of have to go through this middle section where there's only one world, and that world, the way I had basically pulled it all together was it's just a red star with a rock around it. It's nothing special at all. And why on earth would you ever want to go there except that you're going to have to go there to go through? And so who would live at this place? And Greg looked at me and goes, "Nah, it's Vegas in space." I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant."
Space Vegas, of course.
Of course, why, and of course, the mob and any entrepreneurial businessman is going to run in there and set up everything they can because you have to go there. It's like,
Right.
oh well, this makes perfect sense. And after that, it just it practically writes itself.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, so, do you have a starter set with any of your products in it that people can get to start out
I
with
have a
Clement
starter.
Sector?
I do have a starter bundle that's on drive-through where you can kind of just pick up the basic books and just have a general idea of how to start and what to do. We've also got the introduction to Clement Sector, which is out there, which you can pick up for free on drive-through, and you can also get it on our website now.
Oh, cool.
We've opened a web store, independencerpgs.com, and you can buy it from us straight there. We're only PDFs right now on there. We haven't quite gotten set up to ship print books yet. We're working on that.
All right.
But yeah, you can pick up Introduction to Clement Sector for free, and you can get a general idea of what kind of thing we've set up and what we're doing. Gosh, we're up to about 60 something books now, I think, in this thing. So I have no life. I write books. So
Well, that,
you know,
that kind of segues into my next question which is like, I checked out your catalog on drive-through and there's like 80 items in there.
yeah.
So how do you manage to be so prolific and produce so much? Like, what do you just go like,
I
hey,
have
I
no
have an
life.
idea, or I make a list of ideas and just go through them, or?
Well, I have no life. That's the main thing. You know, but no, a lot of it still is coming from just old notebooks that I put together of things that where I was generally upset and depressed in 1988 and 89, and just kind of pulled together a lot of different things to do, and adventure books and so forth and so on, where we were trying, just running this campaign. A lot of it still comes from there, and then on top of that, we're still coming up with new things. Like all of Earth Sector is going to be, all of Earth Sector is going to be completely new stuff. This is not anything that came from the old game. This is just me trying to grasp what Earth Sector might be like. Whereas Clement Sector is pretty much my old game, just kind of put out, writ large. But yeah. I mean, it's just different ideas, different things that come to my mind, and different things that are suggested to me, or just ideas of people come to me ever so often, and they'll say, John, I was looking through Clement Sector, and you really ought to do some sort of a tanker. I've never seen a tanker in any of these books. Oh well, hey. So I go to Michael and I'm like, hey, we need a tanker. Can you design a tanker? Sure, I can design a tanker. No problem. He puts together a tanker. We take it to Ian. Ian does this beautiful art for it. We go through, get some more art, do a little more, do some and send it all to Curtis and let him look at it and fix all my mistakes. Here we go. Right. So it's a lot of fun. we've pretty well kept up to putting a book out a month for quite a while. And every so often we'll miss a month, but
That's a great goal. One book a month. It's you got to hustle to do that, but
oh yeah.
yeah, or have a lot of free time. So, do you have a local gaming group that you game with?
I do. In fact, some of those guys are still some of the folks that I knew at the Royal Tiger, and then one of them, my friend Mike Nixon, has been with me since the very beginning. He was one of the guys that rode the bicycles over there with me to go get Star Frontiers, and so he is he's still gaming with us when we can. And of course, now we've yet to master the concept of doing this online, so of course we haven't done much gaming lately. So but yeah, we still get together.
Do you?
There was a while.
Go on.
Oh yeah, there was a while we were doing pretty much weekly, and then that just got to the point to where everybody had other things going on in their lives, so we're kind of down to bi-weekly at this stage. But yeah, still going strong.
That's great. I was going to ask, do you ever go and host games at local hobby shops, or
I do
anything to
do.
cultivate user groups?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of stuff like that. I'll run special games at different places. We've certainly done them at all the local game shops. I live in a very, very small town called Ringgold, and it's in Georgia, but it's just right near the Tennessee state line. And so Chattanooga, Tennessee is on the other side of the border, and so we do a lot of things in Chattanooga. There's lots and lots of game shops up there. And let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's about 4, maybe 5 game shops in Chattanooga itself. And it's not that big a town, but it's really big into gaming. And we do a lot of stuff up there, going to different games and stuff. Of course, we do conventions quite a bit. We were gonna do, I think, 2 in April this year, but that kind of fell through as most everybody's plans did. But yeah.
What regular conventions do you attend? Like, what are your favorites that you never miss?
Oh gosh, well, let's see. We have Chattanooga and Chattacon in Chattanooga. Chattacon comes in January. Chattanooga is usually in February, and I always try to get to those. And then there's Mysticon in Roanoke, Virginia, which I drive up there every year because that place is fantastic. When I first started out, it was kind of hard to get conventions to talk to me. It was kind of weird. And the folks at Mysticon were just like, no, you drive on up here. You come up here. You run as many games as you want. This is going to be fantastic. So I headed up there, and that was 2012. I think the first time I went up there, and gosh, boy, we've had a great time every time. I do. Let's see, gosh, TravellerCon, of course. Usually in October, usually around Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Last year it was in a different town a little north, but I think it's going back to Lancaster this year. TravellerCon is fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go to Traveller, you really should. That is just, it's a small convention. There's usually not more than 100 people there, but everybody there is big into Traveller. And so
sounds pretty fun to me.
Oh, it's a blast. It's all in one ballroom, basically. Whereas, most of the other conventions I go to are in 5, 6, 7 ballrooms. This is all in one ballroom. It's all there. But it's just like, it's just like, some sort of a concentrate, it's straight. You're not getting anything diluted. It's straight Traveller. That's all that's in there. There's 100 folks in there, and they're all playing Traveller, and that's what they're doing.
Are there many newcomers there, or are they just mostly old hands? Or mix?
There's always somebody there who has never seen Traveller before, or just recently caught on to it and found out this thing was going on near them. Or, just got into it a year or 2 before, and they heard about TravellerCon and said, well, I'll go to that. It's not very far away from me. For me, it's about, let's see. We usually turn it into a 2-day trip. We'll drive up to Roanoke, spend the night. Roanoke, Virginia from here is about 5.5 hours. and then you can kind of do another 5.5 hours up to Lancaster from Roanoke. And so we'll do that. We'll turn it into a 2-day trip and just kind of do things on the way up. My wife's also into history, so we hit the let's see. Last time we went to the D-Day Memorial that's in Bedford, Virginia.
There's
again,
probably some Civil War battlefields you could visit and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I've studied that kind of thing my whole life. Chickamauga is, I can see it from my house if I go outside right now. Well, probably not. It's dark, but we're at light. We're at light. I can see Lookout Mountain and so forth from my house. So I mean, it's not, so I kind of grew up with that sort of thing around me, and so we'll stop at different battlefields and so forth, and the D-Day Memorial and things like this. And we went to Valley Forge last year.
Cool.
That was fantastic. And so just different things here and there. We like to hit historical spots. And of course we by going to Mysticon in Roanoke every year, we've made friends there. So we stop in Roanoke to visit our friends there, and so forth and so on. And it's just it's a big trip anyway, and it's a whole lot of fun. But right. TravellerCon is something. It really is great. Got to meet Mark there, which was fantastic. And I've met a lot of other people. Jeff Zeitland, he does Freelance Traveler. He's there every year. And so, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. That's where I met Dale McCoy that does John Brazier Enterprises.
Oh yeah.
Another good guy. But it's just a great trip, and it's a lot of fun. So
is that what you've been up to this past year, conventions and production on the new Earth Source book?
Oh yeah, most definitely, yeah.
And, go on.
Yeah, it's great.
So what do you do for chilling out time for fun outside of gaming? Do you enjoy sports or fishing or some other hobby?
Lately, not so much.
Not so much.
But no. I do a little. I get together with the Chattanooga Irregular Wargaming Association. They do sometimes historical miniatures, not always. They do a few other different things. Recently, they've been doing Gaslands, which is all kinds of fun. Which is basically, it's sort of like Car Wars, but with like Hot Wheels cars and templates. And it's, if you don't know about this, you got to look into it. It's a lot of fun. It's all kinds of fun.
Well, we used to play Car Wars when we were younger, and one of the things we did was make Car Wars cars out of Matchbox cars, and then took their turnkey and made it bigger, and played it out on a table. It sounds like I should have put that on paper.
Okay, well, what you were doing is what Gaslands is, and right. it's all manner of fun. But my wife is really big into board games. We play a lot of board games.
What's your favorite board game?
Oh well.
Or what game is played most at the Watts house on the board game?
Oh, okay. Well, now as far as what gets played most here with my wife is Axis and Allies. My wife loves Axis and Allies, and we actually bought. This is a funny story. We bought the Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition to play on our anniversary.
Aww.
So, yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
And of course she beat me. That is, but yeah. So there's a lot of Axis and Allies played here. We recently bought the Batman edition of Talisman, which I have not broken open yet, but that is going to happen. That's fantastic.
Talisman. There's hours of fun game there.
Oh yeah, definitely. But we also, over the weekend, we played a game that I had when I was a very small kid, when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I bought a game called Battle of the Networks, and this is just a fantastic little game. It's sort of a mixture of Monopoly and some sort of placement game where you essentially take over one of the 3 big networks, which should show how old this game is. And there's actually 4, because I think there's an independent channel. But at any rate, you move around the board like Monopoly, buying up television shows, and then you place the television shows in the weekend lineup. So there's, from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and you have to place those in there. And each show has its own ratings, and then you can add things to the show to increase its point value. And whoever wins that time slot gets more money, and whoever has the most money at the end wins.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It was all kinds of fun. We played several times over the weekend. And it was a lot of fun. I found a copy on eBay, and I was like, I had that game when I was a kid and I loved it. We should buy that. So we kind of pulled it up together. But I think my absolute favorite game at this stage is probably Firefly, the board game, which I absolutely love. We have had oh yeah, it's fantastic. We've had all kinds of fun with it, and of course, me being me, I had to make modifications. So we've added all kinds of, I've got a Micro Machines, a Millennium Falcon out there, and we've got stats for it, and all kinds of crazy stuff we've done. I've added some Clement Sector stuff in just for the fun of it, and so we've had a blast with that. But I would say that probably most likely, as far as a board game goes, that's probably one of my favorites at this point.
Great.
But yeah, we play all kinds of stuff.
So, what's your plans for this next year? Do you have another big product coming up? Big projects, or I guess conventions are pretty much out. But what about the other life of Independence games?
Well, we're really hoping to be able to go to TravellerCon this year. My understanding is that Mark's going to be there again, and of course, when I say Mark, I'm talking about Mark Miller. The father of Traveller, the main man, and gosh, boy, we're really hoping to see him again. He's I know you've talked to him on there, and gosh, boy, he is a great guy. He's
super friendly.
Mark is everything you want him to be and more. That's the only thing I know how to say. You know of him, and you think, gosh, boy, that's a great guy. And so we're really hoping to be able to go to TravellerCon again, and I really hope that this thing kind of settles down by then, and maybe it won't, but gosh, boy, I sure hope so. Mm. But for the most part, as for what we're doing, we're going to still put out some more Clement Sector stuff. We're not giving up on Clement Sector. We've got a lot of Clement Sector stuff coming. We've got a lot of Earth Sector stuff coming. Trying to get some adventures put together. Certainly going to be more subsector source books. Certainly going to be more starships for both Earth Sector and Clement Sector. We've got the Thames guides, which are we already had the Wendy's guides that were the fleets of Clement Sector, and we'll eventually move the Wendy's guides into Earth Sector as well. And so you'll have Wendy's guides to different national fleets. And we've got the Thames guides, which are the Army, the Air Force, and the wet Navy, shall we say, of each of the planets. And so we've already got one of those out, Tim's Guide to the Ground Forces of Hub Subsector, and so we'll be doing the other subsectors of Clement Sector as well. And we got a lot of that sort of thing, planned. There's a Western game in my brain, and it's something that wants to get out, and I've been talking about this for about 5, maybe 6 years, and it hasn't happened yet, but it will. I don't know how long it will take, but at some stage or another, I really want to do a Western art. But so far, that hasn't happened, but it will.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And of course, like I say, we've got our web store open now, and we're working on getting that to a point where we can ship out print books. But we're not quite there yet, but we will.
Why don't you give me your website address one more time?
Sure, it's independencerpgs.com.
RPGs plural?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you have any social media presence?
Oh yeah, we're on Facebook, Twitter, MeWe, Reddit. We're but yeah, you can find us on there. Like I say, you can use the search on Facebook and go to check out Independence Games, and certainly we're on there. There's also a Clement Sector discussion group wherein we talk about all these different things, and just trying to keep track of everything and go. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, John, we've reached the end of my interview questions.
Awesome.
I want to thank you for sitting with me today and letting me pick your brain about Independence games.
Oh no, thank you, Frank. I had a great time.
I sure appreciate your participation and support around with my social media groups, and you've been a great sponsor for prizes and things, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Oh, hey, no problem at all. No problem at all.
Well, that's it. I'm your host, Frank Succardi, also known as CyborgPrime, and I've been talking with Mr. John Watts of Independence Games. Thanks again, John, for participating in our Mayday Traveller event.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. I loved every minute of it.
And thank you, listener, for joining us today. That's all for now, travelers. Until next time, happy traveling.